we pull in our medical expert, Dr. Cedrek McFadden, now to talk about how people are kind of over it. I keep seeing comments from a lot of people on my Facebook page when I post the latest numbers. You guys are fed up with the coronavirus in many cases. So we want to talk about this concept of quarantine fatigue, and it's real. It is a real thing, and in some cases it's unintentional. It's not something that we purpose to do, but it just happens. It's a general exhaustion. We see a decline in the discipline over all the restrictions that we've had over our life. I mean, if you go back a few months ago when this crisis began, our senses were heightened. We had a sense of urgency. We were perhaps even anxious, and some people were fearful, which drove them to do the things that we thought would be protecting us. Once the dust settles, reality sets in and we sort of acclimate to this, that's when we see this general burnout or this quarantine fatigue setting in. So how do we know that we have quarantine fatigue? Well, are you lashing out unexpectedly at people that you have no reason to do so? That perhaps is one sign. In some cases, it's a sense of loneliness or even a lack of motivation. Many people started by planning their meals. They cleaned out closets that they hadn't cleaned out in a long time. They worked hard from home. Even their children were on a certain schedule. But now perhaps you're struggling to even get up and do the dishes, or you're struggling just to do the things that you should be doing on a daily basis, and perhaps it becomes a general restlessness or relaxation, and even just the quarantining or even the keeping of the distance. So is quarantine fatigue the same as what's known as caution fatigue? So we're seeing that term come up, caution fatigue, and that's an unintentional phenomenon where you essentially believe that the warnings are not real, that it's irrelevant or it's not significant. Part of that has to do with the way our brains work. Our brains are designed to recognize a threat and then to act on it. But as long as that threat remains, our brain adjusts that perception to reduce stress. In some cases where you ignore it, the warning signs. It's like if you had a fire alarm that went off now, we'd all react to it. But if that fire alarm went off for over a week, kept going off, at some point you begin to ignore it. And again, that's perhaps unintentional, but that's exactly what we're seeing setting in. Or you yank the battery out and throw it away. Yank the battery out. Get a new one. All right, let's talk about this. What do we do to fight the fatigue, to stay sort of on our game and aware and doing the smart things, but also not getting burned out? So the first thing we have to recognize is just because you've not gotten sick yet doesn't mean you won't get sick. And so we all have to remember that this is still a very much real risk and very much a real danger, okay? And secondly, we recognized early on that fear was perhaps a motivator. It was the reason why we did things. We wanted to be protecting ourselves and our family. But that inspiration doesn't last very long, so we have to find new sources of inspiration. Perhaps it's short-term things. Perhaps it's, if we all stay safe, we'll perhaps get to spend Christmas together, and figure out ways in which we can re-engage that motivation. And we've said it over and over, and it bears repeating, take care of your mental and your physical health. Exercise, sleep well, eat well, and try to reduce stress as much as possible. Does caution fatigue play into the reluctance for some people to wear masks? It plays into it, and a lot of it plays into the fear that I've not seen anybody who's been sick. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. And perhaps this is just sort of out there, but this doesn't affect me in my circle, and which is going to be very dangerous, especially where we are right now. All right, well, we'll continue to watch the numbers. They've come down the last couple of days. We'll see how things go over the next week. Dr. McFadden will be with us answering your questions about the coronavirus. You can post those on our Facebook page, and we'll join you live at 5 with those. Thank you for that. And you're watching Carolina's Family at 4. We're coming right back.